Hey everybody, Tom Ald here, and welcome to another episode of FOBO, Fear of Becoming Obsolete, where pop culture, agility, and career advice all collide. We're going to continue our reaction video series this week with one of my personal favorites, Simon Sinek's Start With Why. We've all seen the Golden Circle. I used the Golden Circle personally back a few years ago, and it really helped me get unstuck with some of the things I was trying to do in my career and trying to focus on. But what I think gets shortchanged in this video is the other piece that he talks about with leadership. He is an absolute masterclass in storytelling because the full title of the video is Start With Why, How Leaders Inspire Action. And I think we missed that last part. So grab your coffee, tea, or your favorite adult beverage, and let's explore Simon Sinek's Start With Why, How Leaders Inspire Action.
That make you go.
Go. Hey everybody, Tom Ald here. Thanks for joining us as we get into Simon Sinek's Start With Why, How Great Leaders Inspire Action. This is back in 2009, so some of the video quality is a little suspect, and some of the audio gets a little tough to hear. You'll actually see even Simon gets a new microphone partway through, and he doesn't miss a beat. So from like a speaker standpoint, it's just amazing. He doesn't break character, he doesn't slow down or anything. Just takes the new microphone and just keeps going. So keep an eye out for that. But the sound quality might be a little sketchy here or there, but it will get better as the video goes on. So why don't we get started? Let's take a look and see what Simon has to say, and we will talk to you at the end.
We assume even we know why we do what we do. But then how do you explain when things don't go as we assume? Or better, how do you explain when others are able to achieve things that seem to defy all of the assumptions? For example, why is Apple so innovative? Year after year after year after year, they're more innovative than all their competition, and yet they're just a computer company. They're just like everyone else. They have the same access to the same talent, the same agencies, the same consultants, the same media. Then why is it that they seem to have something different? Why is it that Martin Luther King led the civil rights movement? He wasn't the only man who suffered in a pre-civil rights America, and he certainly wasn't the only great orator of the day. Why him? And why is it that the Wright brothers were able to figure out controlled powered manned flight when there were certainly other teams who were better qualified, better funded, and they didn't achieve powered manned flight, and the Wright brothers beat them to it?
So again, I know this is about why and leadership and a little bit of agility, but from a speaker standpoint, just look at how he used like the power of three. He just laid out three perfectly good stories that he's going to get to about Apple, about Martin Luther King, and about the Wright brothers to put his idea into our mind in a way that we can understand it. And he's going to hit it from different angles and different ways. So speakers out there, take note of how well Simon does this.
There's something else at play here. About 3.5 years ago, I made a discovery. And this discovery profoundly changed my view on how I thought the world worked, and it even profoundly changed the way in which I operate in it. As it turns out, there's a pattern. As it turns out, all the great and inspiring leaders and organizations in the world, whether it's Apple or Martin Luther King or the Wright brothers, they all think, act, and communicate the exact same way. And it's the complete opposite to everyone else. All I did was codify it. And it's probably the world's simplest idea. I call it the Golden Circle. Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do, 100%. Some know how they do it, whether you call it your differentiating value proposition or your proprietary process or your USP. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief?
I know a lot of leaders that I work with in commercial settings have a really hard time with that. When I ask them what their why is, it's to achieve stakeholder value. It's to maximize profits. It's to make as much money as possible. It's to beat our competition. That's my least favorite one. But it's not why they are doing what they're doing. Why they are doing something. They're trying to solve a problem. They're trying to make life better for their customers. They're trying to do something beyond that. So really be thoughtful when you're doing this exercise with your team, yourself, or your organization, because you've really got to get this thing nailed. If you understand why you're doing something, it's so much easier to then figure out everything else. Once we know why we're doing something, then all we have to do is argue about how do we want to get there. And that's where a lot of differing ideas can come in. But we can't argue about the why, because if we argue about the why, if we all have different whys, then we're just going to compete with each other within our own walls. And that will absolutely be the thing that leads to disaster. Most companies don't get beat by their competition. They get beat by themselves because they become selfish, they become internally motivated, and they start competing for resources and money and status inside. And then that's what breaks them down in the long run.
Why does your organization exist? Well, as a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. But the inspired leaders and the inspired organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. I use Apple because they're easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done, that's how most sales is done, and that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. We say what we do, we say how we're different or how we're better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's our new law firm. We have the best lawyers with the biggest clients. We have, we always perform for our clients, do business with us. Here's our new car. It gets great gas mileage. It has, leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspiring. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? You ready to buy a computer from me? All I did was reverse the order of the information. People don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. This explains why every single person in this room is perfectly comfortable buying a computer from Apple. But we're also perfectly comfortable buying an MP3 player from Apple, or a phone from Apple, or a DVR from Apple. But as I said before, Apple's just a computer company. There's nothing that distinguishes them structurally from any of their competitors. Their competitors are all equally qualified to make all of these products. In fact, they tried. A few years ago, Gateway came out with flat screen TVs. They're eminently qualified to make flat screen TVs. They've been making flat screen monitors for years. Nobody bought one. Dell came out with MP3 players and PDAs. And they make great quality products, and they can make perfectly well-designed products. And nobody bought one. In fact, talking about it now, we can't even imagine buying an MP3 player from Dell. Why would you buy an MP3 player from a computer company? But we do it every day.
So there's the exercise I would love for you to try. If you're really interested, try this experiment. Do the why, the how, and the what. Do it from the way you know it right now, from the what to the how to the why, and then reverse it and see what is our team's why. What is my personal why? What is our organization's why? It clears up so much, and we waste so much time at work because we're not clear of priorities or because why we're doing something. And so when we're arguing about how to do something, it's because we have different ideas of why. Once we identify the why, then we can argue about the how and the what. But if we're arguing for different whys, it doesn't matter. We're never going to come together on the how and the what because we're trying to solve two different things. So give this a try. I really, really, really would like you to give this a try and let me know in the comments if this has worked for you or not.
People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. The goal is not to do business with everybody who needs what you have. The goal is to do business with people who believe what you believe. Here's the best part. None of what I'm telling you is my opinion. It's all grounded in the tenets of biology, not psychology, biology.
That was a mic drop moment for me the first time. I was just like, wait, psychology, biology? Biology's helping us make decisions? Tell me more. I need to know more about that.
If you look at a cross-section of the human brain looking from the top down, what you see is the human brain is actually broken into three major components that correlate perfectly with the golden circle. Our newest brain, our Homo sapien brain, our neocortex, corresponds with the what level. The neocortex is responsible for all of our rational and analytical thought and language. The middle two sections make up our limbic brains, and our limbic brains are responsible for all of our feelings, like trust and loyalty. It's also responsible for all human behavior, all decision-making, and it has no capacity for language. In other words, when we communicate from the outside in, yes, people can understand vast amounts of complicated information like features and benefits and facts and figures. It just doesn't drive behavior. When we communicate from the inside out, we're talking directly to the part of the brain that controls behavior, and then we allow people to rationalize it with the tangible things we say and do. This is where gut decisions come from. You know, sometimes you can give somebody all the facts and your figures and they say, I know what all the facts and details say, but it just doesn't feel right. Why would we use that verb? It doesn't feel right. Because the part of the brain that controls decision-making doesn't control language. And the best we can muster up is, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right.
So have you had that? Have you been getting a car sold to you and all the facts and figures are making sense, but your gut's just like, oh, I just don't know? Now you know why. It's because, yeah, you like the car, but maybe it doesn't suit all of your needs or your most important needs. So it could be the same with anything that you're buying. So just think of everything that you are a fan of as a consumer. What do you buy? Are you a Starbucks person or a Caribou or a Dunkin' or a Pete's coffee? Why do you choose them? It's still coffee. You can go to anywhere. Why does this one resonate with you better than the others?
Or sometimes you say you're leading with your heart or you're leading with your soul. Well, I hate to break it to you, those aren't other body parts controlling your behavior. It's all happening here in your limbic brain, the part of the brain that controls decision-making and not language. But if you don't know why you do what you do, and people respond to why you do what you do, then how will you ever get people to vote for you or buy something from you, or more importantly, be loyal and want to be a part of what it is that you do? Again, the goal is not just to sell people who need what you have. The goal is to sell to people who believe what you believe. The goal is not just to hire people who need a job. It's to hire people who believe what you believe. I always say that, you know, there's if you hire people just because they can do a job, they'll work for your money. But if you hire people who believe what you believe, they work for you with blood and sweat and tears. And nowhere else is there a better example of this than with the Wright brothers. Most people don't know about Samuel Pierpont Langley. And back in the early 20th century, the pursuit of powered man flight was like the dot-com of the day. Everybody was trying it. And Samuel Pierpont Langley had what we assume to be the recipe for success. I mean, even now, when you ask people, why did your product or why did your company fail? And people always give you the same permutation of the same three things. Undercapitalized, the wrong people, bad market conditions. It's always the same three things. So let's explore that. Samuel Pierpont Langley was given $50,000 by the War Department to figure out this flying machine. Money was no problem. He held a seat at Harvard and worked at the Smithsonian and was extremely well connected. He knew all the big minds of the day. He hired the best minds money could find, and the market conditions were fantastic. The New York Times followed him around everywhere, and everyone was rooting for Langley. And how come we've never heard of Samuel Pierpont Langley? A few hundred miles away in Dayton, Ohio, Orville and Wilbur Wright. They had none of what we consider to be the recipe for success. They had no money. They paid for their dream with the proceeds from their bicycle shop. Not a single person on the Wright brothers team had a college education, not even Orville or Wilbur. And the New York Times followed them around nowhere. The difference was Orville and Wilbur were driven by a cause, by a purpose, by a belief. They believed that if they could figure out this flying machine, it'll change the course of the world. Samuel Pierpont Langley was different. He wanted to be rich and he wanted to be famous. He was in pursuit of the result. He was in pursuit of the riches. And lo and behold, look what happened. The people who believed in the Wright brothers' dream worked with them with blood and sweat and tears. The others just worked for the paycheck. And they tell stories of how every time the Wright brothers went out, they would have to take 5 sets of parts because that's how many times they would crash before they came in for supper. And eventually, on December 17th, 1903, the Wright brothers took flight. And no one was there to even experience it. We found out about it a few days later. And further proof that Langley was motivated by the wrong thing, the day the Wright brothers took flight, he quit. He could have said, "That's an amazing discovery, guys, and I will improve upon your technology." But he didn't. He wasn't first, he didn't get rich, he didn't get famous, so he quit. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And if you talk about what you believe, you will attract those who believe what you believe.
So I love that story. Simon does an amazing job with it. The other one I like to use in our classes are Microsoft versus Wikipedia. So back in 97, 98, Microsoft came out with this product called Encarta, which was an encyclopedia on a disk. So you had all the world's knowledge on a disk. But around the same time, Wikipedia launched and just asked common people, put in information in here. Start to just, whatever you're interested in, put in information. And here we're looking at this ragtag group of home experts that are putting in information into Wikipedia versus Microsoft, the giant at the time, and is obviously still a giant, trying to compete. And Wikipedia is free, and Encarta wasn't that expensive, but it was, it was a couple $100 or whatever. And then look what happened. Wikipedia is everything. It's a verb now. It's a noun.
And if you talk about what you believe, you will attract those who believe what you believe. Well, why is it important to attract those who believe what you believe? Something called the law of diffusion of innovation. And if you don't know the law, you definitely know the terminology. The first 2.5% of our population are our innovators. The next 13.5% of our population are our early adopters. The next 34% are your early majority, your late majority, and your laggards. The only reason these people buy touch-tone phones is because you can't buy rotary phones anymore. We all sit at various places at various times on the scale, but what the law of diffusion of innovation tells us is that if you want mass market success or mass market acceptance of an idea, you cannot have it until you achieve this tipping point between 15 and 18% market penetration, and then the system tips. And I love asking businesses, what's your conversion on new business? And they love to tell you, oh, it's about 10% proudly. Well, you can trip over 10% of the customers. We all have about 10% who just get it. That's how we describe them, right? That's like that gut feeling, oh, they just get it. The problem is, how do you find the ones that just get it before you're doing business with them versus the ones who don't get it? So it's this here, this little gap, that you have to close, as Geoffrey Moore calls it, crossing the chasm. Because you see, the early majority will not try something until someone else has tried it first. And these guys, the innovators and the early adopters, they're comfortable making those gut decisions. They're more comfortable making those intuitive decisions that are driven by what they believe about the world and not just what product is available. These are the people who stood online for 6 hours to buy an iPhone when they first came out, when you could have just walked into the store the next week and bought one off the shelf. These are the people who spent $40,000 on flat screen TVs when they first came out, even though the technology was substandard. And by the way, they didn't do it because the technology was so great. They did it for themselves. It's because they wanted to be first. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And what you do simply proves what you believe. In fact, people will do the things that prove what they believe. The reason that person bought the iPhone in the first 6 hours, or stood in line for 6 hours, was because of what they believed about the world and how they wanted everybody to see them. They were first. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it.
So the law of diffusion, again, for all my Agilist friends out here, when you're working on an Agile transformation, does that model look pretty similar? Yeah. When we go in with ideas about agility and adjusting the way that we want to build our products and build our teams and build our organizations, there's about 15 to 20% of the organization that just gets it. They're feeling some pain and they know it. But it's that middle area, that 68% in the middle, that we eventually need to get to in order to really have success for a business transformation. If we can't get to them, we're just going to be stuck spinning our wheels with the people that already get it, and then they get frustrated, and then it all just kind of collapses onto itself. So Agilists, if you're working through a transformation, keep this process in mind. How do we get to that middle 68%?
So let me give you a famous example, a famous failure and a famous success of the law of diffusion of innovation. First, the famous failure. It's a commercial example. As we said before a second ago, the recipe for success is money and the right people and the right marketing conditions, right? You should have success then. Look at TiVo. From the time TiVo came out about 8 or 9 years ago to this current day, they are the single highest quality product on the market. Hands down, there is no dispute. They were extremely well funded. Market conditions were fantastic. I mean, we use TiVo as a verb. I TiVo stuff on my piece of junk Time Warner DVR all the time. But TiVo is a commercial failure. They've never made money. And when they went IPO, their stock was at about $30 or $40 and then plummeted, and it's never traded above 10. In fact, I don't think it's even traded above 6, except for a couple of little spikes. Because you see, when TiVo launched their product, they told us all what they had. They said, we have a product that pauses live TV, skips commercials, rewinds live TV, and memorizes your viewing habits without you even asking. And the cynical majority said, we don't believe you, we don't need it, we don't like it, you're scaring us. What if they had said, if you're the kind of person who likes to have total control over every aspect of your life, boy, do we have a product for you. It pauses live TV, skips commercials, memorizes your viewing habits, etc., etc. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it, and what you do simply serves as the proof of what you believe. Now let me give you a successful example of the law of diffusion of innovation. In the summer of 1963, 250,000 people showed up on the Mall in Washington to hear Dr. King speak. They sent out no invitations, and there was no website to check the date. How do you do that? Well, Dr. King wasn't the only man in America who was a great orator. He wasn't the only man in America who suffered in a pre-civil rights America. In fact, some of his ideas were bad, but he had a gift. He didn't go around telling people what needed to change in America. He went around and told people what he believed. I believe, I believe, I believe, he told people. And people who believed what he believed took his cause and they made it their own, and they told people. And some of those people created structures to get the word out to even more people. And lo and behold, 250,000 people showed up on the right day, on the right time to hear him speak. How many of them showed up for him? 0. They showed up for themselves. It's what they believed about America that got them to travel on a bus for 8 hours to stand in the sun in Washington in the middle of August. It's what they believed, and it wasn't about black versus white. 25% of the audience was white. Dr. King believed that there are 2 types of laws in this world, those that are made by a higher authority and those that are made by man. And not until all the laws that are made by man are consistent with the laws that are made by the higher authority will we live in a just world. It just so happens that the civil rights movement was the perfect thing to help him bring his cause to life. We followed not for him, but for ourselves. And by the way, he gave the I have a dream speech, not the I have a plan speech. Listen to politicians now with their comprehensive 12-point plans. They're not inspiring anybody. Because there are leaders and there are those who lead. Leaders hold a position of power or authority, but those who lead inspire us or find others who inspire them. Thank you very much.
And there you have it. Simon Sinek's Start With Why, How Great Leaders Inspire Action. I love this video. This absolutely hit me at the right point in my career when I was questioning a lot of my career decisions. I'd made a series of 3 pretty bad career decisions in a row over a relatively short amount of time, and it really put me into a dark place of what am I doing and why am I doing it and who am I doing it for. But it really helped me come out of that dark place and focus on doing exactly what I wanted to be doing and who I wanted to work with to help them grow their company, their team, or their individual skills. So that's our why. What do you think? Did you get any value from this? Did you have fun? Did you get inspired? If so, leave us a comment, leave us a like, please subscribe if you can. Any little thing you do for us helps us keep making these videos and sharing the word about fear of becoming obsolete and sharing a little joy, having a little fun, because that's what it's all about. I'm your friendly neighborhood product owner, Tom Ald, signing off. Have a valuable week and take care.
Things that make you go,